usually off of just playing around and based off of sports. These two groups and the Catholics here, the Catholic League specifically here, they hate these people's existence. So don't show up, it's fine. Show up at the next game, it'll be okay. That's it for the show today, you guys. Thanks for joining me. It was a solo hour. I didn't get to talk to you guys as much because I talk too much. Up next is the Young Turks, you guys. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, of course. We'll see you guys tomorrow for Big News Wednesday.
Woo! It's up!
Welcome to Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. Really crazy day, interesting day. And among the interesting stories today is Tucker Carlson and Donald J. Trump look like they might be teaming up to take on Fox News. There's not been this dramatic a tag team since the Road Warriors crossed over to the WWF. Nobody saw it coming, right? And then they took on the Wild Samoans, and everybody knows how that ended.
We all know.
Okay, so that's later in the program, as well as a lot of madness. So let's get started, Casper.
Well, we do have a story involving an attack on the White House. We will discuss that in just a moment, but a different story that broke pretty soon before we started the show today has to do with a professor in New York. An example of politically motivated violence on the left that I don't think is helpful at all. So let's talk about it. An adjunct professor in Manhattan's Hunter College threatened to chop up a New York Post reporter while holding a machete to his throat. Now we're gonna explain the context in which this occurred, but first, the shocking video.
Away from my door. Get the away from my door.
Let's get out of here. You can't do that.
Away from my door. Get the away from my door.
Let's get out of here. You can't.
So that was Shelly-Ann Rodriguez, again, an adjunct professor at Hunter College. The reporter there is from the New York Post, and he actually approached her at her Bronx apartment to ask her questions about an incident that occurred on the Hunter College campus involving anti-abortion students. They had set up a booth. I'll give you some more information about that in just a moment. But here's a little more of what led up to this incident. So on Tuesday, meaning today, New York Post reporter Ruben Fenton knocked on Rodriguez's door. Rodriguez yelled from inside, "Get the F away from my door or I'm gonna chop you up with this machete." Fenton identified himself, and moments later, she emerged from her apartment wielding a machete, which she promptly put to Fenton's neck. Now, the Post is reporting that the reporter and his photographer immediately left after she did that, for obvious reasons. But an armed Rodriguez then followed them outside of the building onto the street, where she accosted them outside and continued to threaten them. She said, quote, "If I see you on this block one more effing time, you're gonna," Rodriguez said, while still wielding the knife, the machete. "Get the F off the block, get the F out of here, yo." The professor briefly chased the Post photographer down the street to his car before coming back to kick the reporter in the shins. She finally retreated into the building after that occurred. So I'm gonna take a little break and get your thoughts, Cenk.
Yeah, so not remotely acceptable. And I don't know what other shows are gonna say about it if they're even gonna cover it, but I don't want anybody thinking that the progressive position is to hold machetes to reporters' necks. No, totally, utterly unacceptable. She should be fired immediately. And so what bothers me is that a lot of times when stories break, everybody gets tribal, right? And you go to your different corners, different political corners, different ethnic corners, etc. And so she's one of us, she's a minority, right? So that's it, we're gonna defend her. No. And if she puts a machete to a reporter's neck, can Matt Walsh do it? Can Tucker Carlson do it?
I mean, we'd be outraged if something like that happened. And we should be outraged because resorting to violence is, first of all, not a good way to win over or persuade anyone of anything. And it's immoral, It is counterproductive. And look, this is the New York Post. Some might be uncomfortable and might not trust what's coming from the New York Post. I certainly want to see receipts when it comes to these types of narratives, right? They provided the receipts in the form of the video you watched, and also in terms of Rodriguez accosting the photographer and the reporter outside of the building. They provided some evidence of that in the form of a photo, which you can take a look at right here. So clearly you could see that she has something in her hand, which I'm assuming is the machete. It's not that clear in that image.
We saw the video. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. So look, again, this just broke, so I don't really know what anybody else is gonna say about it, but it should be universal. This is her second act of violence, and trust me that the right wing has more machetes, more AR-15s, more weapons, are more willing to use it. Getting into physical violent altercations is crazy.
Now, you mentioned that she should be fired. She has been fired, and we'll get to the statement from the college in just a moment. But I think it's also important to understand why a reporter would show up to her door. Like, what did he want to ask her about? Because look, and let me just say, if you're on the left and you want to make the case that a reporter showing up to her door is unacceptable and she felt threatened and that's why she can use violence against the reporter, I disagree. Would you say the same thing about Taylor Lorenz when she was showing up to relatives' homes to speak to Chaya Raichik? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, no, that would be unacceptable.
Close.
So it's not close. Let me give you further context, right? So what did the New York Post reporter want to talk to her about? Well, it had to do with an incident that occurred on the campus of Hunter College on May 3rd. So there were some anti-abortion students who set up a booth, and the booth was meant to pass out information in the form of pamphlets in regard to their political views and their ideology when it comes to reproductive rights. She didn't like that, and she approached the students, and here's what happened.
You're not educated. This is propaganda. What are you gonna do, like anti-trans next? Is that what you're gonna do next?
I mean, no, we're talking about abortion.
This is violent. You're triggering my students.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, you're not, because you can't even have a baby. So you don't even know what that is. You don't even know what this is. You're out of here.
I mean, there's number one, they're students. Number two, I mean, I disagree with their political views. It's a college campus where your ideology, your political views, whatever stance you have on any particular policy issue should be debated and discussed openly. It's supposed to be the kind of environment where you're supposed to have an exchange of ideas. And the fact that she got like that with the students is insane to me. The students who set up the booth are with the Students for Life of America. You guys know what my views on reproductive rights are. I've been pretty aggressive in promoting the notion that women should have full autonomy of their bodies, full agency. They should be able to make the decision in regard to what they do. But nonetheless, I'm not gonna assault students and start throwing stuff off of the table that they set up just because I disagree with them. That, in my opinion, signals to everyone watching that you don't have the ability to defend your position, and instead you need to resort to shutting down opposition like that.
Yeah, so look, this is why I say she's in our tribe, because obviously she's left wing. I agree with her position on abortion. But I don't agree with the way that she handled that. That's crazy. Look, there's two parts of it that's crazy. Number one, you're a professor and you're physically throwing their stuff around. That doesn't make, no, totally unacceptable. Guys, always think about what if the shoe was on the other foot. Imagine you're doing a table for any cause, but lately, like, trans has been in the news a lot. You're doing something that says, hey, we should respect and value our fellow trans students, right? And some right winger comes in and goes, oh yeah, and then starts throwing stuff around on the table. What's gonna happen? You're gonna get super mad. I know I'd get super mad, right? That's violence. It's totally unacceptable. It's physical, etc. And it could lead to further physicality. No, it's not even close on this one either, okay? But there's one other thing that really ticked me off about that. She's like, you're triggering my students. First of all, no. He's apparently triggering you, not your students, so let's keep it real, okay? But more importantly, she said, this is violent. And then she did violence. No. You can't, look guys, and now I'm gonna lose some progressives because there's this theory going around that I can't stand, that words that are not at all violent are actually violent because we disagree with them. No, that's not a thing. You just made up that standard. It's not at all a thing. Words can be violent if they are a direct assault, and an assault could mean like, I'm going to hit you, I'm going to kill you, as opposed to actually doing it. It's still assault when you say it. You put someone's life in danger or you make them worry about their lives. So there are some words that actually are in the legal category of violence, but hey, I don't like what you're saying, or I don't agree with what you're saying, is not violence. It's not. We've had pro-life and pro-choice here, and you can say pro-choice and anti-choice in this country for my entire life. And when they cross the line, the right wing crossed the line, and they attack doctors or any of us because they don't agree. I think it's like the equivalent of knee surgery. They're like, oh no, I think it's an issue of morality, so I'm gonna hit you, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna blockade your abortion clinics, etc. That is totally, utterly unacceptable, right? But when they say, hey, I think life begins at conception, that is not violence. It just isn't. That's their opinion, okay? And you certainly can't use this idea of, well, I didn't like what you said, so I'm gonna call it violence, and then I'm gonna meet it with violence, actual violence, physical violence. No, absolutely not. If you do that, you're not really a progressive. You become, like, if you're in that tiny category, you've come all the way around and you agree with the right wing ideology. If I don't like something, I get to hit it. No, that is not at all what a progressive does.
Also, this is just my opinion, and obviously people can disagree with it, but look, for me, for at least a year, 2 years, I mean, I kind of expressed this on the show before. I was experiencing pretty extreme boredom. And what I mean by that is, just existing in this echo chamber where your ideology, your ideas, your beliefs, like none of it gets challenged because you're constantly surrounded by people who agree with you. And more importantly, what I've noticed is if you dare to maybe disagree even slightly within your political tribe, right? I mean, the anger that's directed toward you over that is pretty intense. And so I always speak my mind no matter what, so I just deal with the backlash. But the point that I'm trying to make is you become sharper and better at expressing and communicating what your beliefs and values are. You get better at defending them when they're challenged. And there's no better place, if you ask me, for your beliefs to be challenged than on a college campus when you're learning about yourself, when you're figuring out who you really are, what your beliefs and values really happen to be. And if you're true in those values, you're able to defend them calmly through debate, through civil debate. When you try to just shut down or silence the opposition, what that communicates to everyone else is that you're coming from a place of weakness, from the inability to defend your positions. And seeing that take place on the left is really disheartening, incredibly discouraging, and I think it's unnecessary, right?
And I'll go for, look, so, look, I think that debate doesn't even have to be civil. I think it could be heated debate.
No, I love heated debate.
Right, and we raise our voices, etc. But there's a very clear line. You do not cross over into anything physical. And by the way, when you do that, as I've said about the right wing 1,000 times, the minute they do that, what they've said is, I surrender. I can't beat you with my ideas, so I'm gonna resort to violence. And so if the left does it, what, we're gonna have a different standard? No, well, what would that make us? That would make us hypocrites, just like the right wing. Now, a standard for you and a standard for me. No, there's only one standard. You could argue as strongly as you possibly can. And by the way, don't listen to establishment Democrats telling you not to argue strongly, okay? Make your case and win that battle of ideas. But the minute you cross over to physicality, you've surrendered and said, I'm impotent. I can't beat you with my brain, so I'm gonna attack you with my arms.
Or with strategy.
Or with a machete, okay? So, and by the way, I don't want people like that who are unhinged smearing the rest of all of us, including you guys, so that then the right wing can come in and go, oh, look at all the left wingers doing this kind of violence. No, that's why it's very important to draw a line and say, I don't care which side she's on, that's unacceptable.
So you had mentioned whether some on the left might defend her actions. I haven't obviously seen any statements so far. The story just broke in regard to her meeting a New York Post reporter with a machete. That just broke. I haven't seen any statements from progressive groups. However, after the incident that took place on May 3rd, in which the professor approached and accosted those students who are anti-abortion, there were some progressive groups on campus who stood up to defend her. So I want to give you some of their statements. One of the groups that stood up and defended her is the CUNY for Abortion Rights group, and another group that co-signed onto this statement is the Palestine Solidarity Alliance. And here's what they said. Hunter College adjunct professor Shelly Ann Rodriguez approached the display, constructively critiqued the group members, and eventually physically took down items from the table. Her actions to shut down the tabling were fully justified.
Ridiculous.
And are part of a long and celebrated CUNY legacy of confronting groups such as military recruiters who disseminate misleading information. I mean,
no, you meet their misleading information with correct information, especially if you're a professor. That's your job. One of our members just wrote in saying, why wasn't she fired over that incident? And that's because we have crazy people like this defending her. What does Palestine have anything to do with this crazy professor committing violence on her college campus? What are you guys doing? That's not helpful to the Palestinian cause. How do you, and why are you even involved in this debate? And if you're pro-choice, you think the right thing to do is you're not allowed to choose your opinion. And if you do, I'm gonna commit violence against you. You think that's the pro-choice position? No, it is not remotely the pro-choice position. And that was not 1% constructive. By the way, if she had gone all the way to yelling at them and giving her point of view, I would have said, hey, look, I don't know that that's a great thing for a professor to do, but not guilty, no problem, okay? But the minute you cross that line into physicality or violence, you've lost the argument, and it's just super counterproductive, guys. And remember, look, even Mahatma Gandhi said this. He said, partly we didn't go in the direction of violence because they had more guns than us, okay? So you're not gonna out-violent the right wing. And I don't want tiny speck, microscopic part of the left pretending that they represent us all.
Finally, Hunter College did put out a statement indicating that they have fired her over this latest incident. They write that Hunter College strongly condemns the unacceptable actions of Rodriguez and has taken immediate action. Rodriguez has been relieved of her duties at Hunter College effective immediately and will not be returning to teach at the school. So there was immediate action taken after the latest event. So that's the story.
All right.
Why don't we take a break? When we come back, we have another story involving violence, this time directed toward the White House. That story is still developing, but we'll give you the information as we know it when we come back from the break.
Back on TOT during the social break here. Let's go to comments. Let's go to Super Chat first. Athletes LLC writes in, yeah, no bueno. You can't do that. She's an outlier. Keep spreading the progressive word. Need more truth tellers. Good job, peoples. Appreciate it. Thank you. Ersta with a comment that is I disagree with. Sorry. So is the whole show going to be bashing the woman that apparently lost her mind? Well, a lot of the shows are us bashing right-wingers who lost their minds. And so why do we do that? It's because, we found one person in a corner somewhere and that needs mental health and we decided to pick on him? No, because they're affecting the national dialogue. So we're part of the national dialogue. So we have to tell people, apparently, we have to tell people, do not attack reporters with machetes. So that's our job to regulate on that. It's not about her. She should get mental health counseling. She should seek treatment, etc. But I guarantee you there'll be defenders of her. So, and in fact there were already, the Cooney pro-choice group, the Palestine group, etc. So in the earlier incident, to be fair, not in the machete incident, okay? So I don't know, if you don't like that and you think like, no, if it's on our side, we shouldn't do it. I don't know what to tell you, I just disagree. And these are members, I love you, but it is what it is. Joe Anderson says, if someone's at your door, you're allowed to defend yourself. Sorry, I love you guys, but you're dead wrong here. Joe, no, you're dead wrong, I'm sorry. But if somebody comes to your door and you don't know who they are and you get a weapon behind the door, I get it, I don't love it, but I get it, okay? They identify themselves as a reporter, they have a photographer with them, and it looks like they are a reporter and a photographer. You do not come out with a weapon. Do not come out with a weapon. And then you follow them down the street and you kick them, and you're following down the street with a machete? No, this is exactly what I was worried about. Do not defend this stuff. That's, okay, then you're gonna be the pro-machete people. Is that a great politics genius?
But only if someone who agrees with our politics does it, of course.
Yeah, and by the way, you guys know it. Joe, Ursa, I love you guys. But you guys help to support the show, you guys help to make the show, and that's why we talk to you like family, okay? You know that if Jesse Waters or any of these guys came out with a machete and put it to the throat of Ryan Grimm at The Intercept, you would lose your mind. If Marjorie Taylor Greene did it, you would lose your mind and you would be right. You cannot have two different standards. We're better than that. Don't be like the right wing. Shade Dragon says, yeah, I figured they'd do that. Adjunct professors have no room to be human. Perhaps if she'd been a crying skinny blonde. Guys, do you think that if she was a crying skinny blonde and she took a machete to a left winger, we'd be like, oh no, it's totally okay. Okay. Gypsy Mama says, have you seen the graphic horrible photos used in pro-life propaganda? That's what she was calling violence at the table. Yeah, no, I've seen it. I hate it. I can't stand that. But you're not gonna help by calling it violence. All right, well. All right, look, lots of heated thoughts on, including from our members on that last story with the professor. You guys, and there's tons of people who agree with us. Textan says, how does a professor that throws student stuff around still have a job, let alone a machete in New York City, no less? Is Shy Coltrane 42 says, resorting to violence in place of reasoning just shows laziness. Lou B says, violence is the declaration of defeat of reasoned discourse.
Yep.
We can go on, right? And there's a lot of people I read during the social break who disagree with us. Guys, I'm not gonna pull a Fox News. Fox News is, oh, my audience said something. All right, let's lie to them then, because I don't wanna hurt their feelings, right? No, I'm not gonna lie to you, even if you don't like it. Not gonna do it. Do not resort to violence. If you do, it's a disastrous road. It ends terribly for all of us. It ends terribly for humanity. And I'm not gonna tolerate it. And if you don't like that and you want a progressive show that believes in violence, go have at it, Hoss. Go to a show that believes in violence. That's not us, and it's never gonna be us. Sorry.
All right, let's talk about another story involving violence, this.
Police say a man in a U-Haul truck seen there intentionally rammed a barrier. You see that happen, but could not get through. He's been charged with threatening to kill, kidnap, or harm the president, vice president, or members of their family.
A 19-year-old man from Missouri by the name of Sai Varshith Kandula has been arrested and is facing multiple charges, including threatening to kill the president and vice president of the United States. Now, the Secret Service is luckily confirming that no one has been injured or harmed. The story is still developing, so there's a lot we don't know even at this moment, but as it develops, we'll give you more details. But for now, here's what we do know. The truck, which carried a Nazi flag among other items, crashed into security barriers on the north side of Lafayette Square at 16th Street just before 10 p.m. Eastern time, according to the US Secret Service. A preliminary investigation revealed the driver may have intentionally struck the barrier, the agency later said. In fact, here is some more information about the incident and what transpired on the scene.
Video at the scene shows investigators inspecting, once that all stopped, a Nazi flag, a black backpack, a roll of duct tape, a notebook with writing in it, and other items the suspects apparently had with him. The Secret Service evacuated a nearby hotel as bomb technicians searched the truck to make sure there weren't any explosives inside.
Now, luckily, there were no explosives inside. Here's what we do know about the contents of the U-Haul truck. Among the items that appear to be from the truck are a Nazi flag, a black backpack, a roll of duct tape. The cargo area of the moving truck appeared empty. So the Nazi flag is getting a lot of attention for obvious reasons. We're gonna get to the insane right-wing reaction to the Nazi flag in just a moment. Now, law enforcement sources also told CNN that the suspect did in fact make some violent threats against Joe Biden. Kandula made threatening comments regarding the White House at the scene, including that he wanted to kidnap and harm President Joe Biden. ABC News also reported that FBI agents who interviewed him relayed that the individual said that he wanted to seize power, take over the government, and kill the president. Authorities are looking at a mental health component, possible mental health issue that could have led to this incident. Yeah, so look, that's all we know, right? Like, yes, there was a Nazi flag. I want to show you this image that shows the flag unfurled right next to the U-Haul truck. Apparently, the fact that it was unfurled like that was suspicious to right-wingers like Matt Walsh, which we'll get to in just a moment. But first, what were the charges? Well, he has been charged on 5 counts, including assault with a dangerous weapon, reckless operation of a motor vehicle, trespassing and destruction of federal property. US Park Police said he's also been charged with threatening to kill, kidnap, or inflict harm on a president, vice president, or their families. Cenk.
Okay, so I want to cover the right-wing lunatic reaction. So let's go to Don Jr. first. He had a lot of tweets about this, but where he implied that this was some sort of federal law enforcement false flag operation. One of them is this, where he puts a picture of the suspect who appears to be South Asian and says, clearly a white supremacist, right? Like, haha, it's
sarcastically, yeah.
This is obviously not the case, and so this is obviously a fake event, presumably put on by the FBI or law enforcement, which apparently now the right wing hate. They apparently despise law enforcement, and they think all investigations are fake and phony, and that they're all liars. This is an amazing development in American politics, where the right wing now despises cops and thinks everything they say is a lie. That is amazing, okay?
Before you continue though, what I don't understand is, why is the right wing taking ownership of this guy? Like, in a way, right? I mean, why are they getting so defensive about this? As soon as there's like a swastika tattoo involved or a Nazi flag involved, the right gets super defensive and starts denying that the incident is real. Why?
Anna, that's such a great point, because until you said it, this thought had not occurred to me. This whole day, this thought never crossed my mind. Oh man, I better explain that Nazi flag. I better explain it away. Because I mean, why would that occur to you? Why would you be like, oh, I better make sure I defend the guy with the Nazi flag? Thought no one who isn't worried that they might be in that same category, okay?
Yeah.
Keep it real. Speaking of that same category, let's go to Matt Walsh. He said, totally normal, of course, for the police to neatly lay out the evidence at a crime scene so that reporters can take pictures. So a conspiracy theory is born. And by the way, I did a tweet about this in the morning, and then I couldn't believe it. Everybody is look, so I don't know that this applies to everyone that's right wing in the country, okay? And unfortunately, in social media, we have the most extreme people from both sides, okay? So I can't speak for all right wingers, but almost every right winger in social media thinks that this is a false flag operation.
But why?
They've all become Alex Jones.
But I don't get, like, why? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, why would this be a false flag?
Oh, I know their theory.
A false flag for what?
No, their theory is, oh yeah, of course, you send in a South Asian guy to be a white supremacist. Pause. Did it not occur to any of you that if the FBI had done it, that maybe they would have sent in a white guy?
For real?
Like, no, you thought the FBI is like, hey, anybody want to volunteer? Oh, we got a South Asian guy. Let's pretend that he's the white supremacist, right? But they've lost their minds, so logic is totally irrelevant to them, okay? So, but I know what their theory is. Their theory is, yeah, the FBI sends in an Indian guy to pretend to be a Nazi to try to kill Biden and Kamala Harris so they could crack down on the right wing. But wait a minute, the guy has Nazi paraphernalia. Are you worried that the FBI is gonna crack down on Nazis? Correct answer is yes, they are worried about that. Guys, you're telling on yourself without realizing it, okay? I'm not 1% worried that the FBI is gonna crack down too hard on Nazis in America, okay? If you show me the FBI abusing the law, you show them abusing FISA warrants, as actually happened the other day, even in the case of January 6th defendants, I'll come out and say, no, I don't want the FBI breaking the law under any circumstances, even if it's against crazy right wingers who are doing insurrection, etc. I don't want that. But you give me a legitimate investigation of Nazis in the country and I don't catch feelings over it. So no, I'm sorry, Matt Walsh and Donald Trump Jr. and apparently every single right winger online. You've lost your minds. Check yourself into an asylum where you belong. The FBI or the local cops aren't gonna get an Indian guy and be like, oh yeah, man, let's pretend he's a Nazi. And then let's pretend he's trying to kill Biden and Kamala Harris so we can, maybe crack down on the right wing later?
Yeah.
No, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
I think, I don't know.
Lunatics.
I don't know, Cenk. I think you're partly being unfair to the right-wingers online.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, the FBI does have a long history of engaging in some special operations on behalf of the left wing in America. Like that's what they're known.
No, but seriously, like look at that, right? And, like Anna's kidding because it's so obviously
absurd.
a joke,
It's
right?
absurd.
But they really believe it. They're like, oh man, the FBI is so left wing. Oh, they've been against the right wing the whole time. Yeah, have you ever, guys? That's the thing, man. They've never read a history book in their life. The FBI is massively right wing. They would literally murder left wing activists. They've been up until today. They investigate Black Lives Matter, all progressive groups against oil drilling. They're like, just in case they're terrorists, anybody opposing a corporation is a terrorist. The FBI's been awfully right wing. They do one investigation of you guys because your beloved cult leader has broken 1,000 goddamn laws. And all of a sudden you guys are like, oh, did you know FBI does investigations of people? Yeah, it's called the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Welcome to America, welcome to this planet. They're like, no, we're the special victims, us and these Nazis. We're the victims. The FBI is actually going after Nazis now. What's next? Okay, no,
Yeah,
I'll tell you the best theory on what this guy is. Obviously mentally ill, okay? And if you don't know, yes, some South Asians and believe that they're Aryan, and that doesn't mean Aryan as in Nazi. It just means Aryan is an Indo-European group, and you will see in some Hindu culture and drawings, it's art and religious symbols, the reverse swastika, because they're also Aryan, not Aryan in bad, not Aryan as in Nazi, but Aryan as in genetics, biology, etc. And so it's not actually totally crazy for a South Asian guy to go in this direction if he is mentally unwell. Of course, no person who's mentally well, South Asian or otherwise, is gonna go in this direction, right?
I mean, the guy thinks he's gonna take over the government with his U-Haul truck. Like he's 19. We don't know much about his motive yet. So everybody calm the hell down. Just calm down.
But look, guys, here's what we do know. He has Nazi flag, duct tape, all this stuff, and he was going to kill the Democratic president and the Democratic vice president. So, and Anna, that's why they have to come up with a false flag thing, because who thinks a left winger is gonna go kill Biden? Nobody thinks that, right? So they're like, but I gotta protect the Nazis, so it's a false flag operation. Yeah, they're pretending to be a right winger. It's those dastardly cops who are always against the right wing. You live on a different planet. Go get mental health counseling.
All right, it does feel like we're trapped in an insane asylum. Like it definitely does feel like that, and it's becoming more and more untenable. But nonetheless, we move on to a completely different story that doesn't involve violence. So, House GOP lawmakers interrupted debt ceiling negotiations to focus on what really matters and what they do well: fundraising. Now, what were they fundraising for? Well, it was for the National Republican Congressional Committee, so they were fundraising for themselves. And I love the fact that they interrupted the difficult legislative job that they do in order to engage in this fundraising. So this made headlines because of the auction associated with this fundraising effort. So the fundraising auction of McCarthy's used cherry lip balm ended with Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene placing a winning $100,000 bid, as confirmed by her spokesperson. But guys, don't think that she did that automatically, immediately, just to suck up to Kevin McCarthy. She did it after Kevin McCarthy was willing to sweeten the deal a little bit. She only began bidding after the California Republican chose to sweeten the deal. He agreed to attend a dinner with the winner and whichever donors and supporters they plan to bring along. So here is a photo of Marjorie Greene celebrating, a little celebratory photo with the used chapstick that Kevin McCarthy had used. Now that cash, by the way, is headed to the House GOP campaign arm. The fundraiser during Tuesday morning's closed-door GOP conference meeting lasted about 15 minutes, with first-term Representative Aaron Bean leading the auction. After all, it was his campaign's branded chapstick up for bids. So I am amused by this, but like this is what they do all the time.
Yeah. So I'm going to have an opinion here that's not altogether too popular with mainstream Democrats.
We got a trend going today,
yeah,
folks.
I know, right? So look, is it absurd to buy the used chapstick at an auction for $100,000? Of course it is, but everybody knows that. But everybody also knows it's not about the chapstick, right? She's basically giving that to the House GOP campaign committee, right? And by the way, all of the congressmen have to chip in to that campaign committee. In this case, though, they're trying to get them to chip in more. Why can Marjorie Taylor Greene afford that? Because she has tons of grassroots fundraising. So she has more money probably than almost any of them do
so depressing.
On the House side, okay? Now look, I like grassroots fundraising, and she appeals to her grassroots. So I would rather have that than corporations, but in her case, her base is a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, right? So they push her to do more crazy stuff, and every time she does it, she makes more money. So for her, $100,000 for chapstick ain't that big a deal, okay? So that is actually, now here comes the ironic twist here. That's actually not as bad as other Republicans and other Democrats who raised it from giant multinational corporations and then give it to their campaign arm.
Okay, so before you get to that, I just have to go to this one line in the Politico piece about this story, which I thought was funny, right? So Olivia Beavers, who wrote the Politico piece, writes, Democrats greeted the McCarthy chapstick auction with barely masked alarm. They were alarmed. But like, why are you alarmed?
What do you, no,
why are Democrats alarmed? I mean, Democrats, maybe they're not engaging in auctions for chapstick, but they certainly engage in the same fundraising.
No, guys, I'm on the warpath. Like, that's sorry, but I come with facts. 90% of the Democratic Party, and I'm being conservative there, it's probably higher, right? But the Justice Democrats do not take corporate PAC money, so they're exempt from this. Of all people, Matt Gaetz does not take corporate PAC money, so he's exempt on the Republican side. But the overwhelming majority of both parties, including, yes, the beloved Democrats, take campaign contributions just like that and give it to their campaign arms of their party just like that, okay? And they all do it because the whole thing is corrupt. All those campaign contributions from corporations are flat out bribes. Corporations are not people, they don't have opinions. They're not doing it for the public good, they are doing it for their bottom line. And they have purchased almost all of our politicians. So when you see a tiny snippet of this, don't be like, oh my God, I didn't know. No, you should be alarmed, not at that particular incident. Which, by the way, of course that incident is absurd. I don't mind you like being angry about it, of course, right? But what I'm telling you is you should be angry at the whole goddamn system because that's what they do 24/7. And for Democrats, corporate Democrats, which is again 90% of the party, to be like, oh, I can't believe she raised money. These reporters don't believe anything. What, you guys raised millions of dollars and then the reporters kiss your ass for it.
Well,
and then I can't believe she gave it to their campaign committee. We do the same thing. Okay, go ahead, reporter, write it credulously like Democrats are holy and angels. And even though we do the same exact thing, and then let's all make fun of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
So look, the Democrats exploited this story in what they probably believe is a strategic way of owning the Republicans here, right? So for instance, let's go to graphic 7, where Representative Velasquez wrote the following: sending $100,000 or spending $100,000 on chapstick while working overtime to gut the programs that working families rely on. GOP priorities in a nutshell. And what she's referring to, of course, is the debt ceiling. So Democrats gave all sorts of statements to the press about how inappropriate this is as we're quickly approaching the deadline for the debt ceiling, and the GOP is just not cooperating because they want to gut social spending programs. But let's also be honest about that, because Democratic leadership has now made it clear that they're going to aid and abet the Republican effort to gut social spending programs. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's get to Hakeem Jeffries and what we learned about him late last night. So he issued a statement in regard to the Republicans' demands, and here's what he had to say about it. We're willing to discuss freezing spending at current levels. That's an inherently reasonable position many in our party might even be uncomfortable with, but President Biden recognizes we're in a divided government situation. President Biden and Democratic leadership also realizes that the debt ceiling, like they have to raise the debt ceiling. And Republicans Democrats should call their bluff. Republicans are gonna end up raising the debt ceiling, even if Democrats refuse to provide a single concession. And the reason why I say that is because failing to raise the debt ceiling will crash the world economy, and it will financially harm the very lawmakers who are far more interested in engaging in what appears to be insider trading than doing their jobs as legislators. So why are we pretending as if Democrats have no choice? Joe Biden has no choice but to negotiate with Republicans. It's a false premise, and I can't stand it. So look, it's all a game because corporate Democrats are in cahoots. They want to cut social spending programs. And by the way, freezing spending is actually a spending cut when you take into account inflation. So a spending cut would amount to a 5% cut when adjusted for inflation, a step back from the Biden administration budget request in March, which proposed increasing discretionary spending. But by the way, so Democrats have agreed, all right, fine, maybe we freeze spending on defense, defense-related discretionary spending and non-defense discretionary spending. Republicans aren't happy with that. They're not satisfied. They're like, no. We are not satisfied with that. We want to increase defense spending and freeze non-defense discretionary spending, meaning social safety net programs, right? Here's my prediction. Democrats will give them what they want because Democrats also agree with that policy. They just do.
Yeah. So look, I'm so sick of the propaganda on all sides. So I wrote about this on social media again earlier today, and what was the reaction that I got from establishment Democrats? They couldn't believe it. They're like, "What are you doing?" No, of course Democrats don't do this kind of campaign contributions.
Right.
And then I was like, oh my God, the people who watch MSNBC, CNN, read New York Times, listen to NPR, they genuinely believe that the Democrats are angels. That when they take campaign contributions, it's out of the goodness of their heart that the corporations gave it to them and that they took it and they never returned the favor. The meanie, evil Republicans return the favor, but Democrats are too holy to do that. That's crazy. You've been brainwashed. No, both sides take the money and do exactly as they are told. And that's not conjecture, guys. We've shown it to you on the show over and over and over again. Not only do we show it to you in the votes and we show you the receipts, here's what the contributions they got and here's how they voted for Republicans and for Democrats, okay? But on top of that, we do predictions ahead of time and tell you, look, politics is super simple. Follow the money. So here, we're gonna tell you exactly how things are gonna turn out, and they always turn out that way. But reporters are like, money? What's money? I don't know, right? That's the thing that corrupts Republicans, but not the beloved angelic Democrats. It's absurd, it's insane. Okay, now let's go to Hakeem Jeffries, last thing. So look, best case scenario for Hakeem Jeffries is that he's a complete and utter loser. But that's not the reality. The reality is Hakeem Jeffries on economic issues agrees with the Republicans, just as Joe Biden does, just as Nancy Pelosi does. That's why he takes the Republican. Did you hear what he called the Republican position? These lunatic Republicans come in and go, I'm gonna hold the whole economy hostage. I'm gonna hold the country hostage. We didn't do it under Trump, but we're gonna say that we're gonna crash the economy by not lifting the debt ceiling. You don't negotiate with that. The Republicans didn't negotiate with Democrats when Trump was in charge over the debt ceiling. Here's the amount of negotiation that happened under Trump on the debt ceiling. Zero, none, zero. So you return that in kind. If you're a strong Democrat and you actually believe in your positions, you go, no, we're not negotiating. You want us to use the 14th Amendment, we'll use the 14th Amendment. You want us to use executive power, we'll use executive power. We don't give a damn. And by the way, look, the Republicans have the House, so you can't just lift the filibuster like they did last time. Remember, the Democrats lifted the filibuster because they thought it was so important, right? So instead, Hakeem Jeffries calls that insane Republican position, quote, inherently reasonable. Why don't you just go work for them?
Seriously.
Inherently reasonable? You think McCarthy, Marjorie Taylor Greene on policy positions, when they're holding the whole country hostage, they're being inherently reasonable? Nah, they're paid to lose. The donors control the corporate Democrats 100%. So they say, hey, you know what? Have this fake fight over the debt ceiling. And then look at the Republicans. They say, oh, I'm so concerned about the debt, but I want to increase spending.
On defense.
On defense.
Yep.
Well, then you're not concerned about the debt.
Nope.
You're concerned about make sure you take from the average American.
Yep.
If it's going to the average American, take it, take it, take it. And who do we give it to? Defense contractors, super rich billionaire defense contractors who just coincidentally happen to be our donors. And Democrats who also have the same exact donors go, oh golly gee, there was nothing we could do. We had to take it from the average American and give it to our contributors because we're bipartisan and we care about getting along with the Republicans so much. No, it's all theater. Every mainstream media reporter that plays along with this is garbage. They should go get another job. Go be a plumber. That's a noble profession, okay? Go clean the streets. It's a noble profession instead of doing marketing for corporate rule. And these corporate Democrats are disgusting. And don't get me wrong, if it's 90% of the Democratic Party, Republicans don't be like, oh man, we're the good ones. No, your party is 99% corrupt.
100%, what are you talking about?
I'm giving Matt Gaetz credit for not taking corporate PAC money. I can't stand Matt Gaetz, and I need you guys to do nuance. Like when you say, hey, the guy doesn't take corporate PAC money, they go, oh, so you like him? No, I don't like him. I can't. I was literally the only reporter who said to his face, hey, what did you do with that 17-year-old? Okay, so we kick ass for a living, okay? But you have to be honest. So when they don't take corporate PAC money, you have to acknowledge that. And when our side does, just like they do for 99% of the time, you have to acknowledge that. But instead, what do we have? We have tribes. The MSNBC tribe says, nope, we're gonna be hypocrites. If the Democrats do it, it's okay. If the Republicans do it, it's terrible. The Fox News tribe says, oh, when the Republicans are corrupt, it's awesome. And Donald Trump is the king of corruption, and that's the best. He came to drain the swamp and drained it all into his goddamn pockets, and that's awesome. But when the Democrats do it, it's bad. No, they're both lying to you. These guys are all bought.
We'll talk about what workers want when we come back from the break.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to Super Chat first. Michael Malbon wrote in, my 1-year anniversary of membership. So far, I think my biggest contribution to the TYT community was getting Anna's barista story for a bonus episode 8 months ago. Here's to many more years with Cenk, Anna, Bart, and the chat that always brings it. Michael, thank you, brother. We appreciate it. You're awesome for being a member, for using Super Chat. Speaking of awesome, Athletes LLC is back, saying, Cenk, don't get frustrated. Truth, truth, truth. Cannot defend the indefensible. Justification does not equal truth. This is simple accountability. She's lucky that she's not locked up, okay? So that was about the professor. So thank you guys, I appreciate it. You're wonderful for caring about what's true. Serena Not Williams wrote in, Anna, your comment about being trapped in an insane asylum is spot on.
Yeah.
That's why my progressive news website and social network is called Asylum News Network. Politics are insane ever since Trump. Look, politics was always corrupt way before Trump, but since Trump, they've become absolutely insane.
Yeah, I gotta say, like the thing that has been the most depressing for me personally is seeing the far left adopt some of the tactics of the far right, okay? And I'm not equating them as if they're exactly the same, but I remember when I first started working at TYT, what really attracted me to progressivism was the openness, the fight to ensure that everyone gets an opportunity to speak their piece and share their ideas, even if we disagree with it. I remember when I started TYT in 2007, it was the right wing that was trying to shut down comedians, burn like Harry Potter books and all of that stuff. And now it's the opposite, and I hate it, honestly, because I remember even back then thinking, oh, these right wingers can't defend their beliefs. They're so insecure. That's why they resort to these tactics. To see the left do it, we don't need to. We don't need to. On the topic of abortion, the majority of the country is on our side, right? We have to strategically defeat the politicians who pass these terrible policies statewide. But anyway, it's
look. I don't. So let me be clear about for 21 years here, we have made sure we don't do false equivalencies. Okay, so I want everybody to understand this. So number one. 93% of Republicans voted for Trump. So they saw that lunatic and said, yay! 52% said that Joe Biden orchestrated the riot against himself. Okay, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, majority of the Republican Party. 28% of Republicans say it's time for violence, okay? For us, we have a tiny sliver on social media that call themselves leftists, but that have now become the caricature that Tucker Carlson and other right-wingers used to make fun of. That don't represent 98% of the rest of us, but they are super loud and they get out there and they say like weird, outrageous things that are not progressive positions at all. And they go, I am the most pure and you must listen to what I say. No deal, brothers and sisters, no deal, okay? So do not allow that tiny, minuscule percentage to try to represent all of us. All right, we'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Ronnie Sweat, Owen Wolfson, Pierce Felt, JP, Rager, all just became members. You're amazing, we appreciate you. You make us stronger, we do this together. So they hit the join button below the video on YouTube, you can do likewise. And of course, you could join from anywhere at tyt.com/join. And I wanna thank Athletes LLC now for the third time, because they just gifted 50 Young Turks membership on YouTube. So
that's amazing.
That is amazing. Thank you, brothers. We appreciate it. And I don't know who else is at the LLC, brothers and sisters. So thank you, thank you. And that's the community standing up for one another. And I love that about you guys. All right, Anna.
Let's talk about what workers want. This was a fascinating poll that was done that I wanted to discuss. So let's do it. The Washington Post and Ipsos have put out a poll regarding the thoughts, interests, and concerns of American workers. They wanted to see where their hearts and minds are at. And there were some pretty surprising results from the poll. Stay tuned for what I believe was the most shocking result of this poll. But first, let's talk about what it happens to be the most important for workers. Now, the pollsters specifically asked the survey takers, how important are each of the following aspects of the job? And then they asked a follow-up question, which of the following aspects of the job are most important to you? So if you take a look at this graph, you'll notice that the light orange represents extremely / very important, and then the darker orange represents most important. And as you can see, the vast majority of workers believe that how much they get paid on the job is the most important thing. That's the #1 priority, which makes a lot of sense. Coming in at number 2, though, you have a good boss or manager, which also makes a lot of sense. Although I will say, while the majority of people said that it was in fact extremely or very important, a significantly smaller share believe that it's the most important issue, especially when you compare it to pay, right? So just to give you some more information about what they found here. So notably things like free gym memberships, lunches, and laundry service were at the bottom of the list. So when employers have like, pizza parties and things like that, the employers are like, whatever. They're not that impressed by that. Because look, at the end of the day, it's what is the what's gonna cause lasting happiness at work? And it's making sure that you're making enough money to live, and also that you have a good relationship with your boss / manager, because who wants to deal with someone they don't get along with? That can make your life pretty miserable. So before I continue, any thoughts on that so far, Jay?
Yeah, look, I think that having a good boss or manager coming in a strong number 2 is interesting, and it makes sense. And it's something that hasn't been emphasized in these studies that much before. But I remember when my wife had a manager that was very difficult, right? Totally unreasonable. It kind of ruins your life.
Oh, totally, 100%.
It takes over everything. You can't stop thinking about it for 8, 10 hours a day, or sometimes you'd work 12 hours a day. You got this person breathing down your neck, asking you for, no matter what you do, you can't win, right? It's like a torture chamber. So I don't blame him.
I had this one boss that, he didn't necessarily yell at me. He never yelled at me, actually, but he would just yell all the time. Like, he was super animated and always, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
No, Jake is freaking awesome. Like, I'm very, very lucky. But no, totally. Like, I had a short stint at a media company prior to working at TYT. There was some crossover where I worked at TYT and this company at the same time. And I just remember management being really difficult there, like yelling at me over literally nonsense, right? Asking me to print out papers. And since I didn't do it literally right that moment, right away, because I was taking a feed from a reporter who was remote, this editor just lost it on me and was like screaming at me. I'm like, I don't know, pretty sure it's more important to take the feed from the reporter, but nonetheless.
So I'll tell you real quick a bad boss story that I had. I'm working at a prosecutor's office. I get arrested. It's a false arrest. It's proven to be a false arrest, and my boss is still yelling at the top of his lungs at me, and I'm like, it's literally a false arrest, adjudicated as a false arrest, right? He's like, oh, I don't care. And I'm like, okay, well, then that makes you weirdo and totally unreasonable, right? And so, no, I can't stand it. And by the way, I left there early because I was like, I'm not gonna go into work with this idiot and telling me what to do, sorry.
So following the priority of having a good boss or manager, you have benefits, right? Makes a lot of sense. Health insurance benefits, retirement benefits, amount of vacation time. Right in the middle is friendliness of coworkers, which I would venture to say is also very important. But in the age of remote work for a lot of white collar workers, I can understand why it's lower down the list of priorities. Now let's move on to other issues, including remote work. How do Americans feel about having to go into the office? How many Americans are able to do remote work? Well, they asked the survey takers about that. If you had a choice, how often would you want to work from home? And unsurprisingly, the majority of respondents want to work from home all of the time or most of the time. Only a small percentage, 1% say never, 5% say rarely. So 7 in 10 workers said that they choose to work from home all of the time at 37%, or most of the time at 35%. About a quarter of these workers would choose to work from home some of the time at 23%, while just 6% would opt to work remotely rarely or never. And look, why? Why is that? I thought that was the most interesting part of it, because I feel this, right? I actually don't mind coming into the office and doing the show from the studio. I think it looks better, it sounds better, there's more chemistry because we can pick up on certain nonverbal cues.
Agreed.
However, the commute kills me. The commute kills me. It takes so much time out of my day, and I was, I guess, unsurprised to find that that's the top reason why workers would rather work from home. One of the other reasons why is because they feel that they're actually more productive at home, and honestly, I feel that as well. When I'm in the studio, if I'm producing the show from the studio, I want to chat it up, right? I want to chat it up. Like, I see John, I see Bart, I see, John, the stage manager, who's a different John that you haven't seen on camera before. Like, I want to hang out with my friends. So I get that too.
Yeah, and by the way, another factor here was hanging out with friends. And so, but what was interesting is that like half the people don't have any friends at work. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucks.
It sucks, but I get it too. I mean, I think that some of what's going on right now culturally, right, and some of the call out culture that's happening is discouraging people from getting close with their colleagues at work. I think that's what's happening.
That's part of it. And remember, guys, I imagine that this is blue collar and white collar combined. So that's kind of interesting. Look, my biggest takeaway is I'm shocked at the number of people who are relatively happy with their job.
Yep, I want to get to that. So why don't we fast forward to that, where I couldn't believe it. Most workers are actually very happy about, this is graphic 7, about 8 in 10 workers say that they are satisfied with their jobs, while the same shares say their jobs are enjoyable. Even though about 6 in 10 workers, 62%, report that their jobs are stressful. And I totally feel that. I fall in that category. Like, the job is super stressful, but I love the job.
Yeah, me too.
I want to complain about the job, and I want my husband to hear me complain about the job without requesting that I consider a different job, because I don't want a different job. I just want to complain about how stressful the job I love happens to be.
Okay, fair.
Okay.
And so, look, that was really encouraging.
Yeah.
That's like the first encouraging poll in like decades, right? And it does, and I'm heartened to see that American workers are kind of getting along with each other, and some of them kind of like their managers and bosses, and they're pretty satisfied with their jobs. But that doesn't alleviate the #1 problem, which is pay. And that is what corporations have done, is they've taken more and more from their employees and transferred it over to corporate profits, right? So like, pay would probably come in #1 under most circumstances, my guess, because it's such a giant factor, right? But in this case, in America, my guess is it's coming in much higher than it would even in other countries, because we have not had our government represent us, and
we don't have a social safety net, right? Like we have to pay for everything out of pocket. Think about that. In other countries, Scandinavian countries, I mean, your healthcare is provided. So if you have low pay and a lack of like a social safety net and government programs, well, that's a disastrous combination, and that's what American workers are dealing with right now. So I could totally understand why higher pay is the top priority. All right, we got to take a break. That does it for the first hour. When we come back for the second hour of the show, man, we've got a lot to get into, including accusations that Fox News is not right-wing enough and has become too moderate, which is insane. That and more, don't miss it.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K-12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians. It frightens you. But we coming. When you are in a privileged position, equality looks like oppression to you. The Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction.
So what if I have 35? Don't hit me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Let's put up the graphic of this Karen in peak performance. Boom. They want anarchy so they can start creating their own rules.
Can you share with me some examples?
When they were running around during the terrorist attack on January 6th saying hang Mike Pence. So those are the people I'm talking about. That's a problem, correct? You work for Mike Pence, stand up for the guy. Do not allow the ideology of politics to evaporate the humanity that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, so I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed in this country, so I won't stop. And you won't stop either.
Universal health care, raising the minimum wage, doing something about climate change and gun violence, justice system that locks up black and brown folks. We not going for the okie doke no more.
I think Nina Turner is the leader of the progressive movement right now.
It is absolutely a sin and a shame to be in the 21st century in America and having people who are elected to office not only try to separate us, but also use public policy to make it harder to vote.
The questions that we get asked is how you gonna pay for it? I say, oh, we gonna pay for it the same way we pay for the tax cuts. That's how we gonna pay for it. We gonna pay for it in the same way that we give military industrial complex contractors. That's how we gonna pay for it.
If standing up for universal health care or Medicare for all is wrong, Jink, I don't want to be right. If believing that working people deserve to have paid family and medical leave is wrong, I don't want to be right. If wanting everyday people of this nation to live a good life is wrong, then I don't want to be right.
And we are being tested whether we have courage enough, conviction enough, people power enough to stand up and do what is right for ourselves and generations yet unborn.
I'm Nina Turner, and I am unbought and unbossed.
When I started, TYT had already been around for 5 years. It was very possible that it was just gonna crumble and fall apart.
Long before I started working here, I listened to years of TYT.
I came in as a college kid at SC. I was trying to get into broadcast.
I was in a family that thought we were liberal Republicans.
I wish I could sit down with people and give them the opportunity to get to know me on a deeper level.
We moved generations. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am. Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Rager. I told you Rager joined earlier. Well, now he's gifted a Young Turks membership on YouTube, so we appreciate it.
Thanks, Rager.
Yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, guys, you could, we tell you can join through the join button below the video on YouTube, but you could also upgrade through there too, and we really appreciate that as well. All right, Anna, what's next?
What's next is the right-wing revolt against Fox News for not being right-wing enough. Let's talk about it.
According to the Daily Signal, Fox News employees are allowed to use bathrooms that align with their gender identity inside the building rather than their biological sex. And they must be addressed by their preferred name and pronouns in the workplace. What this all really boils down to, this is just one example of this big, woke machine that has all of these massive companies, which Fox is.
Breaking news, Fox News must abide by state laws. What a scandal. Cenk, back to you.
Yeah, they did this whole giant segment and now everybody online among the right wing are doing this like, can you believe they're following the law? Yep. This is just outrageous. So according to California and New York law, you have to respect people. Even if they're LGBTQ.
How dare they?
It's absurd. I watched that whole segment. It was unbelievable. They were like, "Whoa, this is just ridiculous. Now we have to treat them like everyone else and treat them as equals." Look at poor Fox News.
So let's rewind a little bit and talk about how this entire kerfuffle began and what the reality is. Fox News is not in fact woke. Fox News just happens to be headquartered in New York. And it turns out that New York has some laws that right-wingers don't like. And so you have Newsmax, which of course is a competitor to Fox, pretending as if they don't know this and attacking Fox as being too moderate. So this all started, and by the way, that was Newsmax host Rob Schmidt. And this all started after the Daily Signal had put out some report about Fox News and its policies pertaining to bathrooms and respecting employees based on their gender identity. So exclusive leaked policy exposes Fox News stances on woke ideology. The author of that piece explains that in a copy of Fox News's employee handbook that they obtained, which was dated in January of 2021, it says this: Fox News employees are allowed to use bathrooms that align with their gender identity rather than their biological sex, and permitted to dress in alignment with their preferred gender. They must also be addressed by their preferred name and pronouns in the workplace. Now, the author also notes that Fox News offers to help any trans employees with a workplace transition plan should they need it. But again, it's not because Fox believes in this or wants to do it out of the kindness of their own hearts. It's because they're literally mandated to by law. So the article quotes an anonymous former producer for Tucker Carlson's show.
Of course.
And here's the statement: they want you to think it's this place that supports traditionally conservative values, but in reality, they're pushing this nonsense behind the scenes. Again, because they're located in New York. Okay, so I mean, they could move to Alabama, they could move to Florida, they could move their headquarters elsewhere, but that would probably be a difficult operation to pull off. So they've decided to stay in New York and abide by New York laws. By the way,
Rick Leventhal was a reporter in that case. He used to work at Fox News for a long time. So he knows exactly what's going on, but he still goes along with this ruse at Newsmax. I have a mind-blowing fact about him that I'll share with our members in the bonus episode. tyt.com/join to become a member, or if you're on YouTube, hit the join button below. Now, overall though, the more interesting part of this story is why this is happening. So it looks like Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump are going to war against Fox News.
Together, they've joined forces.
Yeah, I mean, we got a tag team situation going on here, okay? And that is a very interesting combo. Tucker Carlson yesterday, I did a live video about this, you can check it out on our channel as well, sending a cease and desist letter to a PAC that was trying to draft him, saying, I am definitely not running, you're defrauding my supporters if you continue this PAC, because under no circumstances will I run in 2024. That's him saying to Donald Trump, okay.
Yeah, he's keeping his powder dry with Trump, right?
Yeah, he's bending a knee. In Planet of the Apes, when the other apes are submitting, they do this, okay? So he doesn't think he could beat Trump, and you've seen the text behind the scenes where he says Trump is a destroyer, he'll destroy us, I hate him, etc. But they have gotten a marriage of convenience. Trump is super mad that basically Murdoch, who runs Fox News, has given the green light to criticize Trump and to support DeSantis. And I think that is true, that is happening. And then they fire Tucker Carlson, so Tucker and Trump get together. Now they're leaking like crazy. So this leak, like, oh, can you believe they don't despise gay people at Fox News? Boo! They know that's catnip for the right-wing audience. So that's why you're seeing this. And by the way, here's a fun prediction, because this one's super easy. There's gonna be a lot more leaks against Fox News, and they're very likely gonna come from the same direction.
Now, let's get to some of the other individuals in the conservative ecosystem essentially pushing the narrative that Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump absolutely want pushed. So Matt Walsh, for instance, tweeted the following: Tucker fought behind the scenes against my blacklisting and even managed to have me on a few times over the past year.
So then you weren't blacklisted, okay.
Right, but now he's gone. There's no stopping Fox's march. Get a leftward.
Yeah.
Leftward. And now there is zero daylight between Fox and MSNBC on the trans issue? What?
I mean, guys,
come on.
Jesse Waters, Greg Gutfeld, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, they do anti-trans segments like it's part of their, like it's in their contract, okay? But now they're the same as MSNBC. Because that's the thing. When you go down these extremist rabbit holes, there's no return. You just fall into that hole forever and ever, and you have to get more and more extreme. So Fox News, which has spread anti-trans propaganda that is vicious and toxic throughout the country, not vicious and toxic enough. We want more. It's never enough. Behind the scenes, you also have to hate them in person, and you have to discriminate against them, and you have to break the law. And by the way, What is that? That's Donald Trump 101. If you don't break the law for me, I'm gonna throw you under a bus. And now that's what the right-wing movement is saying.
One more tweet from Matt Walsh, who says that Fox needs to get the Bud Light treatment. They're actively working to suppress conservative voices while promoting leftism in its most radical form. Enough is enough. They're promoting leftism in its most radical form. In its most radical form.
But
come on, guys, like it's. Like, come on.
Okay, I mean.
I don't even want to entertain, like this is ridiculous.
No, it's insanity, man. But what's so frustrating is tons and tons of right wingers believe it. They think that Fox News is the extreme leftists. And really what's happened here, and I hate to say this, but it's true. Alex Jones has won. Not again in the whole country at all, but in the right wing movement. He has taken over the entire movement. Now everyone over there is a conspiracy theorist, and everyone is maximum extreme. So if you're not doing segments about suntanning your crotch to be more masculine, like Tucker Carlson was, now you're an extreme leftist, okay? Everybody knows that the Fogs are gay because they're not suntanning their crotch. You've got conspiracy theory today. A guy with a Nazi flag tries to kill Biden and Harris in the dumbest way possible with his U-Haul truck, and they're like, nope, it's a false flag. Alex Jones was right about everything. Everything's false flag, everything's a conspiracy theory, and everything has to be even more extreme. And in their worldview, which is now shared by millions and millions and millions of people, Fox News's main problem is they're radical left.
It's amazing. All right, well, let's now pivot to the Donald Trump tantrum, which is, it'll give you a sneak peek into what motivates Trump's ire toward Fox News. Recently, Laura Ingraham discussed a pretty surprising poll on her show on Fox, which showed that Biden beat Trump in this, again, one particular poll, but it shows that Biden would lose to Ron DeSantis, which means Donald Trump don't like this. And he made that abundantly clear. His very fragile ego was just absolutely destroyed. And so he took to Truth Social to do what he does best, which is cry. But before we get to his crying, why don't we take a look at the segment that led to the Trump tantrum in the first place?
Almost all the polls that we've seen that have been done so far, granted it's early, is behind Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden's running pretty badly against generic Republicans, maybe against a Tim Scott or against a Ron DeSantis type figure, but he's consistently beating Donald Trump. And that's part of the reason for that is probably because Trump as well as Biden are so well defined in the American mind. Both of them have some of the same issues. They're well known. They're not a new person on the stage. They both have age concerns.
Let's look at the polls. DeSantis head to head against Biden. Now this is Georgia.
This is Georgia, and this is a good sign for general Republicans to look at because, like you said, Georgia was a state that was just lost. Georgia's got some Democratic senators now. To see Republicans this far out leading, except for Donald Trump, leading Joe Biden shows a lot of the weaknesses.
All right, Chris, let's go to Arizona, another state that Trump lost by less than 1%, 11 electoral votes. What are the polls saying about how he'd do against Biden?
It's a lot of the same thing.
DeSantis versus Biden in Arizona.
Another good sign for DeSantis or generally for the GOP.
Now this is one poll. This is 500 Arizona voters just taken as a plus 4.4.
You're right, it's just one poll.
Margin of error.
But it is a broader trend. In matchups between ex-Republican and Joe Biden, ex-Republican usually wins, except when it's Donald Trump.
Now, just to give you some information about the poll itself, it was commissioned by the Common Sense Society. It does have a margin of error of plus or minus 4 points. And it's one poll. There have been many other polls that we've talked about on this show that unfortunately show that Biden loses to Donald Trump. But he, of course, is hyper-focused on this one poll that's airing on Fox, and he doesn't like it. Now, Cenk, what are your thoughts on this?
So, Trump is not entirely wrong, and here's what I mean by that. There's tons of polls, as Anna just told you. So Fox News chose to do a segment about a poll showing that Donald Trump loses to Biden, but Ron DeSantis beats him. It's not an accident. They could have done an equal and opposite poll showing Donald Trump with a big lead against DeSantis. They could have, and there are some polls that show that Trump is beating Biden by 7 points. They could have done that segment. No, they chose to book that guy knowing that he's gonna say what he's gonna say, which is that almost any Republican can beat Biden except Donald Trump. And Lauren Grimm chose to do that segment. So yeah, Murdoch has told his host, you must be in favor of DeSantis and against Trump. So even though Trump is a sweaty tooth madman and what some of the things he's gonna say here are funny, right? But it is true that Murdoch and Fox News have had enough with Trump. By the way, it's also true, and I loathe Fox News and I loathe Rupert Murdoch, but it is also true that poll that they showed you is far more representative of the combination of polls, that almost anyone can beat Biden, which the Democrats don't want to acknowledge, except Donald Trump. He's the one guy that sometimes beats Biden, which is incredibly depressing and means you should definitely get another candidate, and sometimes loses to Biden. He's the only Republican that loses to Biden in most of the polls, not all of them.
Now let's go to Trump and his post on Truth Social where he writes, Laura Ingraham on Fox News just did a hit piece on me. There go her ratings, showing some polls which indicate that Ron DeSanctimonious may do better against Biden than I would, when actually polls show that I do much better against Biden than Rob.
Than Rob? Why is it Rob and why is it in quotes?
I don't know.
It's Ron DeSantis. I don't understand him at all. Do the right wingers understand him? Why are we calling Ron DeSantis Rob?
Why not? Why not, Cenk?
Yeah.
But why not?
Look, he was calling him like apparently behind the scenes Ronnie Meatball or whatever. I like that.
Yeah, let's go with Ronnie Meatball.
Yeah, I'm happy to do nicknames against Republicans. Very happy. But Rob, where the hell did that come from? Okay, keep going.
Okay, the poll you're looking at now, which has me doing far better against Crooked Joe, was just put out by Fox, I'm sure unhappily. Then he continues to say, I'm also leading DeSantis by over 40 points in primary voting. Watch Greg Kelly on Newsmax at 10 p.m. So these are the polls that Trump was referring to. So in the left-hand side, you can see that Trump is beating Biden 45% to Biden's 38.1%. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see that Joe Biden is beating Ron DeSantis. Biden's at 38.6%, DeSantis is at 35.1%. So look, the other thing I just want to quickly mention is that elections are fluid, meaning that things change and they can change rapidly, right? So you can go from thinking that Jeb Bush is gonna win the Republican primary to all of a sudden, he's like one of the first ones out of the race. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to really predict what is going to happen. There is still a lifetime between today and the actual election. And so polling is gonna change depending on what the prominent issues are at the moment that that poll is taken. But with that said, there have been far too many polls that show Trump beating Biden for my comfort. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Look, and guys, mainstream media does the same exact thing as Fox News here, which is they highlight the polls that they like to send a certain message, and they bury the polls that are inconvenient. So the best example was in 2016, where Bernie Sanders was beating Donald Trump in almost every poll, and Hillary Clinton would beat him in some polls and lose to him in some polls. Bernie was doing like 7 to 8 points better than Hillary Clinton on average of all those polls. But they would find one poll that showed Bernie losing to Trump, and they would all run with it 24/7. So if I talk to my mainstream Democratic friends, they never saw the other polls. So the only one they saw was the one where Bernie was losing and Hillary was doing better. When you cherry pick one poll and one that you know is not representative, you have an agenda. And mainstream media does that all the time. I have another example from CNN in a second. But
okay, all right. Our wonderful producers have shed some light on why Trump is using Rob to refer to Ron DeSantis. So Trump sent out a press release referring to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as Rob. The Trump team sent out an "in case you missed it" alert on Wednesday, sharing a Daily Mail story which had the typo in the headline reading, "Steve Bannon calls Rob DeSantis a weasel." So it looks like Trump saw that, he liked it, and now he's calling him Rob.
That's so inside baseball. Okay, super random. Anyways, by the way, here's speaking of random. Next reporter, please, if you're interviewing Trump, ask him one question, and I guarantee it'll be gold. Ask him, we're calling Ron DeSantis Ron DeSanctimonious. Can you tell us what sanctimonious means? Okay, guaranteed. Guaranteed it's gonna be a viral sensation because there's no chance he knows. Okay, anyways, the most devastating part of that post on Truth Social is when he says, make sure you're watching Greg Kelly on Newsmax at 10 a.m. instead. Okay, so that's what Laura.
10 p.m.
Yeah, did I say a.m.? Yeah, 10 p.m. That's what Laura Ingraham and Fox News is going to catch the biggest feelings over. Okay, so he's hitting him where it hurts, and it's working. Fox's audience is much lower than it used to be when they had Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, and normally that would be cause for celebration, except they're moving over to outlets that are even worse and more unhinged. So
yeah, absolutely. So, all right, I'm gonna say last two things here. One, I promised you the CNN poll. They did a poll just like Fox News and showed that the public option during Obamacare debates back in 2009 was super popular. It was their own poll. So they showed it once and then buried it. And from there on, they kept saying that that the public option was unpopular. They did it so often, we did a protest at the CNN building in LA. We're like, please stop lying about your own poll. So that almost every other media organization decides that they're gonna do propaganda. So be careful about the facts that they're giving you. Last thing is, at the end of Trump's message, he says, just watching Fox News, they're so bad. Just like the globalist Wall Street Journal, okay? So Wall Street Journal, globalist. Globalist, by the way, is also sometimes a code word for Jewish, even though the Wall Street Journal is a company and not Jewish, and Murdoch is also not Jewish, but it doesn't matter, they're globalists now, okay? And at the very, very end of his second message, he says about DeSanctimonious, he sucks, and so does Fox News, okay? Now, that to me was such a telling difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party in the year 2023. If a Democrat ever said about other Democrats they suck, the roof would cave in. All of mainstream media and all the Democrats would be like, how dare you? In fact, Nina Turner didn't say it herself. She was on the stage when Killer Mike, a rapper, said that Clyburn wasn't smart in the deal that he made with Biden. And they said, that's it, you have to hate Nina Turner now. You have to all vote against her because she was on the same stage as someone who mildly criticized a Democrat. Meanwhile, Trump's going, he sucks, okay, you all suck. And the Republicans are like, yes, right? And by the way, if you're wondering what's the correct answer, the correct answer is somewhere in the middle, okay? Where you actually criticize your so-called colleagues when they do things that are wrong, but you don't have to go and say, everyone who isn't me sucks. Okay, and that's Trump 101.
When we come back from the break, we'll talk about the latest thing that has triggered Charlie Kirk.
Sexual anarchy. Anarchy.
All right, back during the social break. Rager's a new member, and I was calling him Rager because it sounded cool, and I thought that was the correct pronunciation.
Oranges. We have to talk about the oranges.
No, and pronunciation is when you erase a pronunciation, which actually is appropriate here. I made that up. All right, so he corrects us, it's pronounced Rager, but I forgive you. Real name is Roger, but I just get angry a lot, so Rager seemed appropriate. Love you guys.
You sound like my kind of guy.
Yeah, right, you're welcome home, Rager. Okay. Rager also wrote in, Democrats and Republicans are just two sides of the same coin. No matter the party, our government's elected officials do not have your best interests at heart. Unfortunately, you are correct, Rager. Pitchfork's Dragon says, don't negotiate with the Republicans about the debt. That's Dragonomics. Okay, I like Dragonomics. And as I told you yesterday, the minute you start negotiating over the debt ceiling, if the negotiations fall apart, it's half your fault. It's a terrible political strategy brought to you by a terrible politician, Joe Biden. Roof caving in. Oh my God, you can't say that, you can't say that. Sheriff Shepard, ideas for Trump. Auction off a pair of skid-marked undies. I bet one of his wacky supporters would pay big bucks.
1000%, and that's disgusting.
Me? It's totally disgusting, but I read it because you are correct. They would pay gigunda money for that, okay? It's a cult, it's a 100% a cult. Sarah Wynn Celeste says she followed them after they left. That is not self-defense. That was about the professor that we covered in the first segment. Tim Vermeulen says about the guy, the Nazi flag that crashed the U-Haul into the gate in front of the park in front of the White House. He says, I'm guessing he's not getting his deposit back. Okay, that's really funny. And Bart, now I know how you're doing it. You're following me on the dock. I got you, brother. I figured that out a couple of months ago and I never said it on air, but genius, I love it.
It took you this long?
I know, totally.
Dude, took you this long.
Are 19-year-olds able to rent U-Haul trucks?
Oh yeah, that's another good question.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. So, Yo Adrian wrote in, Don Jr. should get off the blow.
100%.
Hey, that's just their opinion. I didn't say anything. Chris, although Anna just did. Chris Birch says, happy Tuesday, TYT fam. If you've been in LA the past 20 years and noticed someone hit your car while it was parked, it was most likely Cenk.
Yep.
Old School was great last night. Appreciate the great content. While I'm still in the hospital, have a great weekend, or have a great week, everyone. Chris, we hope you're all right, of course, and thanks for writing in. That's a funny comment and one I appreciate. Don James 1676 on Twitch says, TYT has always been consistent with this view. You have to look at it from a strategic sense, referring to our view on nonviolence. You're right, we have always been consistent, and we appreciate you guys supporting us on that. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, more news.
Well, Charlie Kirk shares a first name with my dog, and that makes me very sad. But with that said, why don't we see what makes Charlie Kirk sad?
I'll say this, Megan. I got an email asking me to go on a program a couple weeks ago, and the producer had his pronouns in his email signature.
Really?
Uh-huh. And
oh my God,
I'm not going to say what show. Yeah, at Fox.
Scandal over at Fox. An email included pronouns. What say you, Uger?
Well, look, I didn't know that Fox had become this radical left.
So radical.
And I'm glad to find out. And I'm just outraged that they're using grammar at Fox News. And look, I think the right wing is justified in their war on grammar. I've always hated pronouns. Yeah, ever since 7th grade when we were forced to learn them, and I thought, what do we need these for? Okay, why do I have to know if it's a he or a she or a they? Okay, let's just move on without pronouns. Well, yeah, life will be a little bit more confusing, guys. The person who emailed Charlie Kirk was not LGBTQ, as far as we know. They just clarified that who they were.
Is there even any evidence of this email? Right, like. If the email exists and there is a producer over at Fox who has made the decision that they want to include their pronouns, okay, great. Why does that offend you so much? Like, I could see a situation in which someone would feel uncomfortable with the inclusion of their pronouns if it's like a forced policy, but there is no indication that there is a forced policy anywhere.
In fact, he says that's the one email he got from Fox News with pronouns.
So what?
And are you supposed to take the pronouns out of the body of the email too? Like, don't say like he went to get a cup of coffee. You have to say like went to get a cup of coffee, but I can't tell you who. And by the way, there's a great irony here. And we covered it in the earlier story about this crazy right-wing college that fired 2 people that worked there for using pronouns at college. Anyway, which is that it's usually someone with a confusing name, first name, right? Confusing as in you're not sure if it's male or female. And that was the case in the college story. I don't know if that was the case in the email, where they're clarifying, oh, this name, like for example, my name, Cenk, is spelled C-E-N-K. How would you know that it's pronounced with a J? Or if it's a male or female, there's no way of knowing, right? If you're unfamiliar with it. And so if I said he, him, etc., would people be like, oh, but wait, the irony is I'm telling you that I'm a man. Isn't Fox News supposed to be in favor of that?
He's part of the binary, folks.
Like, yeah, I'm clarifying that I'm a man, right? Anna clarifies that she's a woman. Isn't the right wing supposed to be thrilled about that?
Also, there's all sorts of names that could go either way, right? So like one of my favorite names for women/girls is Alex. Like I love the name Alexandria and I love shortening it to Alex. So if someone goes by Alex and they happen to be a female, maybe they want to clarify in the context of an email that Alex identifies as a woman. You get what I'm saying? Or is a woman. So like the fact that that would trigger anyone is kind of mind-blowing to me, but I don't know. It was so traumatic for Charlie Kirk and I think that we should hear him out. So let's hear more of what he has to say. Maybe he makes a good case here.
They're asking me to come on the show and I sent it to my team. I said, we are not going on the show. Let me be very clear,
the answer is no.
Yeah, it's like he, him, whatever. I said, look, this at some point you got to just say no. Okay, I am not going to put up with this. And I don't know if it's mandated. I don't know if it's selective. But here you are. You're trying to book Charlie Kirk, and you think that me seeing pronouns in the bio is going to make me say, you know what? I'm going to make time on a weekend that that I could be spending with my precious daughter because of your pronoun signaling to me. Like, no, go find somebody else.
He's not going to put up with this, guys. He's not going to put up with this. How dare they?
Well, look, first of all, this is where he chose to draw the line.
This is where he drew the line.
Okay, he's like, I draw the line at grammar. If you want me to be educated, I will not do it. I can't wait for the right wing to start a war on adjectives. Because you know what? Pronouns are already kind of disastrous. But adjectives, why do we need them? Why don't you just say the word? What do you need to put an adjective in front of it for? And you know what? Those commas have always gotten on my nerves. It's time that we straighten things out. You send me an email with commas? You send it to Cenk Uygur? You're gonna send an email with commas to Cenk Uygur? Oh, I'm not coming on. And I thought Megyn Kelly was not insane. I thought she was a right winger, but not necessarily insane. And she totally agrees.
Yeah, I'm pretty shocked. I
was
just
shocking.
Don't understand it.
They're like, oh, they sent you an email with pronouns where a guy says he's a guy. Well, that was our earlier position. I'm confused, but I'm outraged now. I'm outraged now because I'm outraged at everything. You tell me there was a semicolon in there and I'm going down there right now.
No, those semicolons, like super pesky. Like do not want those pesky semicolons in emails.
Right wingers, do you not get that you guys look crazy? Do you not get that?
And they're missing the point, which is the most offensive thing at all, the existence of email. We should abolish emails. I think everyone would be a lot happier.
Okay, well, now she's going on her own personal warpath. Okay, but the last thing on this, guys. Remember earlier in the show, we told you about how Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump are both doing concentrated attack against Fox News. Well, here comes Charlie Kirk helping to aid that effort. Here comes Megyn Kelly aiding that effort. And by the way, Megyn Kelly used to work at Fox News, but doesn't anymore. So there's a lot of people who caught feelings from Fox News, and they're all beginning to join together and attack the mothership. By the way, I don't know if that's going to turn into a good thing for the left because I'm afraid of what happens. What replaces Fox News, right?
We know what's going to replace Fox News.
Yeah, it's going to be something even crazier.
Yeah,
but
Newsmax, OAN, more extreme garbage that will tear the country apart.
Yeah, but the fact that the right wing, instead of attacking all of the rest of humanity 24/7 is now spending a good chunk of time attacking each other, I'm gonna rank that as good news. Good news overall. I'll take my wins where I can get it. And the fact that they're now declaring jihads on commas and pronouns or whatever against one another and ripping each other's faces off, well, somebody passed the popcorn. I can live with that.
When we come back from the break, we've got more news for you, including a new ride-sharing app that will provide drivers who are armed. Thank God. That and more coming up.
Live like a capitalist every single day.
All right, back during the social break. So don't forget, you can upgrade through the join button. Don't forget our podcasting network, and don't forget our newsletter. There's a lot of things not to forget there. It's a laundry list, but even if you just remember one of them and just check it out for a second, that's already fun and good for everybody. tyt.com/newsletter, by the way, and I think you guys will love it. Now I'm gonna go to members. Thomas the Tank Dragon, thinking along the same exact lines as we were, wrote in right as we were saying it on air. I'm waiting for Charlie Kirk to come out against the elitist globalist Oxford comma. But especially when you put it that way, and Thomas, you put it better than I did. There's like some percentage chance. That's like instantly it's on the board with 25% chance he's gonna do it.
He is not putting up with it, okay?
Okay, no way. Not that goddamn Oxford comma. Okay. Puffed Purple Dragon says the Republican assassin hates Trump. The loathing is bipartisan. I don't see Trump being president in 2024 if the Democrats run a hot dog against him. That's why Democrats will not convict Trump of a felony before October of 2024. Trump is their October surprise. Well, we saw today the date came out for when Trump's gonna go to trial in New York, and it's March 25th. It's after Super Tuesday, but before New York and a lot of other races. And so I know everybody in the establishment hates him, but I don't want to rule out that monster. I'm just counting him out when Democrats refuse to be populist and he's the only populist choice is a bad idea. We have to stay ever vigilant for sure. And look, some of those polls have him beating Biden. And they're right, the Fox News is right. He's the only Republican that can lose to Biden, but that doesn't mean he's gonna lose to Biden. So why don't we find someone else when we're all positive that Biden cannot possibly beat anyone with the possible exception of Trump? Luby says, sanctimonious means meatball. I took Latin in college. That's his prediction for what Trump's gonna say, and not a bad prediction. Biden flavored corn pop says little pudding finger announces on Wednesday. I keep what the Yeti calls people to a bare minimum. So yes, the sanctimonious announces tomorrow. So we'll see. That's on Twitter. It'll be with Elon Musk. We'll cover it. Black Malibu Barbie writes in, I remember when I found TYT. It was at a critical time in my life. I'd finally outed myself as an atheist to my family of strict Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, wow.
And I was just finding my political voice. I felt alone. Now I feel at home. I love my TYT fam, and I really admire you, Anna.
Thank you, wow. That means a lot to me, and I know what it feels like to find your political crew, right? Like find your home, and it's the best feeling in the world. So I'm really glad that you found us, and we're super proud to have you as a viewer of the show. Thank you.
100%. I am Sock says, here's my conspiracy theory. The driver was getting revenge for corn pop.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and look at Abby Brown gifting 5 Young Turks membership. And Rager, I don't know if that was the earlier one, but still I'll give you credit again for gifting a Young Turks membership on YouTube. You guys are awesome, we love you for it. Casper.
So we have an update on the story we did earlier about the individual who rammed a U-Haul truck into a barrier to try to get to the White House. Luckily he failed, but there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of debate about the swastika flag and what the right wing is claiming it's all a false flag. But here is what Kendula, the 19-year-old, told Secret Service as he was being questioned. When Secret Service agents asked Kendula about the flag with a swastika he removed from a backpack, he allegedly said he'd bought it online because, and he's saying this, I want to be clear, because Nazis have a great history, according to the court document. He allegedly said that he, quote, admires their authoritarian nature, eugenics, and their one world order, end quote. Adding that Kendula identified Hitler as a strong leader that he admires. So that is what he told Secret Service. That's the new information that we just received.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify 2 things. One is, when I talked about how it's a symbol in the Hindu religion, that was like hundreds, if not thousands of years before the Germans ever used a swastika. So they, and it's a reverse swastika, and it has nothing to do with what happened during Germany in the 1930s. So I just want to be absolutely clear about that. And I just got that the Republicans think that it's literally a false flag operation. Bunch of knuckleheads.
All right, well, let's move on to a fun story involving a good friend of ours, good friend of the show. He has made an appearance before, and it's this multimillionaire, youth-obsessed entrepreneur. Let's talk about it.
At Blueprint, we have evaluated hundreds of longevity therapies. And I thought it would be pretty epic if my son, my father, and I completed the world's first multi-generational plasma exchange.
Whoa.
Yes, Brian Johnson, the youth-obsessed multimillionaire entrepreneur, is back in the news because now he is infusing his blood with his 17-year-old son's blood in an effort to stay young, not just stay young, but to reverse aging. Now, is there actual scientific data backing up this procedure? We'll get to that, we'll get to that. Don't do this if you're considering it, but nonetheless, we'll tell you more about this story. So Brian Johnson is 45 years old, and we have talked about him on the show before, and he loves to talk about all these experimental treatments he engages in an effort to reverse the signs of aging. He currently has a team of 30 doctors monitoring his bodily functions throughout the day, which, to be quite honest with you, I also don't want to age, but that sounds like hell, and I would rather take aging than have 30 doctors monitoring my bodily functions throughout the day. Totally. He hopes to reverse the signs of aging of every one of his organs, so he's keeping close track of the functionality of his organs, I guess. He spends $2 million a year in his quest for youth. And according to Johnson, Blueprint, which is like the company he's focusing on, has already began reversing his biological age, but it's not good enough, okay? Like he wants to do this whole blood thing to advance the process even further. But here are just some of the stats that he flaunts on his website. I would take it with a grain of salt. This is what he's flaunting on his website, but he claims that he has managed to slow the pace of aging by equivalent 31 years. Now,
no,
I know.
Absurd.
No, we should believe it. We should totally believe it. Now aging slower than the average 10-year-old.
Yeah, come on, dude.
100 plus markers, less than chronological age. I don't know what that means. 31-year age reversal in gray hair age, which sounds pretty good. Free testosterone index, biological age reduced 20 years.
Yeah, soon he's gonna become a fetus, and then the Republicans will protect him. I'm just kidding.
Okay, but look, all of that, like even if it were true, is still not good enough for Brian. So he decided to recruit his son and his own father for this first ever tri-generational blood exchange. And for some reason, he decided to post this super cool, not weird at all photo of himself, his son, and his father. Don't know why that happened, but it did. There it is. Okay.
That is so weird. Like, and it's weird that they don't know that that's weird. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
That actually goes to part of what I'm going to say here, which is Silicon Valley has this subculture that is so different from other subcultures.
What do you mean?
Like, and we've got the two big cultures already split in the country in a way where we can't understand each other, the right and the left. We're just so different. It's hard to fathom each other sometimes. But Silicon Valley is a different little subculture filled with wackos. Okay, sorry, but we did a story the other week about the lifestyle, how they could get together and have orgies and different drugs, et cetera. And I know wherever there's wealth, that kind of stuff happens, right? And that's the relatively normal part.
The orgies, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but they're obsessed with not dying. And now I get that too, because if you have all the money in the world, which like half that town does, right? Then the metric isn't money anymore. The thing you value most is time. That makes a lot of sense. But what doesn't make sense is I have reversed aging until I'm a zygote. In fact, I just got into the egg. Fine, I'm semen. No, dude, you don't need that. You don't need that. You know what you should do instead? Instead of doing this super weirdo regimen, which I think saps the fun out of your life completely, why don't you go enjoy the life that you have?
Go live, yeah, no, 1000%, I totally agree with that. And look, for me, I think that trying to avoid your natural death is ridiculous, right? I'm actually worried about what life is like toward the end of life because everyone you love, everyone around you starts passing away, right? So like enjoy your life now. I am interested in the whole staying young because I wanna look young element of this. I don't know if I wanna live longer, right? Like,
no, see, I'm the reverse. I wanna live longer, but I wanna enjoy the life that I have. This guy I read what he eats, how he sleeps. I even watched the video.
No, it's hell. You might as well just go to hell. Like
no way. Okay.
Why?
The number of garlic breads with cheese he eats is 0.
No, but why? That's not living though.
That's not. Number of pepperoni calzones 0. Number of Nutty Buddies 0. Anyway, he
can't live like that.
So they go to do the blood transfusion, which we're going to give you the facts on in a second, and he's bonding with his dad, who he didn't grow up with because of a divorce. He's bonding with his son, who he didn't grow up with him because of a divorce. And so it's kind of like a nice moment. And he's like, "But I gotta get to sleep right away because my sleep time is non-negotiable." And it's like when the sun sets or something because he's a vampire or reverse of a vampire. Anyway, like, dude, take a load off for a second, okay? Go grab some tater tots and some wings with your son and your dad, who you don't get to see. No, I must do the regimen, so I will live to be 200 years old and hate every day of it. Okay.
I mean, look, if this is what drives him and it makes him happy, great. But he's a weird being because like I can't imagine denying the few pleasures left in life in an effort to live forever, because living forever is not all that it's cracked up to be. But anyway, let's go to the blood transfusion stuff that's going on. So he gets his 17-year-old son and his father to take part in this. In April, the trio visited Resurgence Wellness, a futuristic-looking medical spa in Arlington, Texas. 17-year-old Talmadge Johnson got a liter of his blood removed, about 1/5 of the blood in his entire body, and separated into parts before the plasma was reinfused into his father. Sounds fun. Brian then donated a liter of his blood, or his blood products, to his 70-year-old father, and no one donated anything to the 17-year-old because the 17-year-old is the king here. He's the young one, he's the one everyone wants to be like.
Yeah.
And so he had a liter of his blood taken out, 1/5 of his blood taken out for this experiment that has, well, we'll get to the data behind it and the actual science behind it. But before we do, here's the wellness center's owner talking about plasma exchanges and why people do it, but please take it with a grain of salt.
Plasma exchanges have been going on electively for probably about the past 8 to 10 years. More often, people have used plasma transfusions and young plasma for hair regeneration, so injecting into the scalp. If you think about it, people have been donating plasma since the 50s and 60s. It's beneficial for the donor as well as the recipient.
All right, well, Talmadge will be up first. Is that cool?
Whoa.
1 liter out, 1 liter in for me, 1 liter out for me, liter into Dad.
Yeah, people have been doing this thing called blood transfusions because they need blood transfusions for decades, but they do it because they need it to survive, not because they're trying to live forever.
Yeah, and whatever the hair rejuvenation product is, it apparently doesn't work.
It's called dye, by the way. Just look it up.
Okay, anyways. All right, look, tons of things to say here. Again, this is a Silicon Valley trend. It's such a trend that it was actually in the HBO show called Silicon Valley. And when I saw it, I was like, they don't really do that, do they? And it turns out, oh my God, they do. They do.
But Cenk, I gotta give them the actual background, like the science and how this is nonsense before we continue. Because if we run out of time and I don't get you guys this information, I'll lose my mind. Okay, so the FDA is not on board with this, saying that there has been no evidence showing the transfusions reverse or slow aging. In fact, in 2019, the FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb released a statement warning about the dangers associated with it. I'm just gonna read a quick comment from him. Simply infusing plasma is not benign intervention and should not be used in such cavalier fashion. We have a lot of public health concerns. This is not an appropriate use of plasma. And by the way, aside from there being no compelling evidence to bolster this treatment, Gottlieb also says that reports we're seeing indicate that the dosing of these infusions can involve administration of large volumes of plasma that can be associated with significant risks, including infectious, allergic, respiratory, and cardiovascular risks, among others. Okay, with that said, Cenk, take it away.
Okay, so where do they even get this crazy idea that it's gonna work? Well, they did experiment on mice, right? But the problem is when they put the mice completely together, sounds disastrous, but anyway, and so they would share not just the blood, but the organs as well. So it's like 2 livers working, et cetera. So it's a long explanation, but the bottom line is the researcher who did that research said, it doesn't mean the blood transfer is definitely going to help you. And remember, we've done no human experiments. This is just mice. And when we did it with just the blood transfer, there was also some slightly positive effects, but again, just mice. So she's like, do not use, or he says, do not use my research to justify doing it on humans, because that's cray-cray, okay? Now let me give you some of the potential downsides, and then I want to draw your attention to a devastating fact in here. Okay, so I'm quoting Business Insider now. But researchers who study the procedure say it poses major risks for patients, including an elevated risk of developing several serious conditions later in life, such as graft versus host disease.
What?
Which can occur when transfused blood cells attack the patient's own cells, and transfusion-associated lung injury.
That sounds very dangerous for the lungs.
Do not do that, okay? Now that doesn't mean it's gonna happen, but that means there's some percentage chance that it is. And you're taking that chance when it hasn't been tested on humans at all. Now, here's the most important part. You wanna take that chance for yourself, that's one thing, but you're also taking it for your 70-year-old dad. Now, luckily, the 17-year-old isn't getting a transfusion, but he's losing blood, but he'll be okay, right? But
Willie.
But you are getting his blood, and remember, so I didn't know this until I watched his own video, but the kid didn't live with the dad for the whole time, and the dad reaches out, they have a newfound relationship, and the kid says, oh, he got me out of religion, and he's much happier now, and good, I like that, right? But did he get the kid so he could do this?
Don't say
I don't know.
It's so devastating if that's true.
I don't know, and I feel, and maybe he didn't, maybe not at all, maybe not at all. Okay, But I know that putting the kid aside, I would not take that chance with my 70-year-old dad.
Listen, the one thing I want to say about this is a wealthy man who has resources for mental health care. Please go get therapy and stop with this, okay? Live your life, enjoy your life. Stop doing this to yourself. Stop doing this to your other family members. You're not winning with this at all. It's super, super weird. Members only postgame is next. Don't miss it. tyt.com/join. We'll see you there.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new, toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at toostrongcoffee.com/TYT.